Hello there, Gamerinos and Gamerinas! Welcome to UnicornStorm. This is Rady, and well, this year must be the Chinese year of the turtle, because we were not only treated to this awesome new retro-styled Turtles game, but also the Cowabunga edition that brought back 13 classic Turtles games. Games from the arcade, the Super Nintendo or NES, the Sega Mega Drive, and even the Game Boy. And there are lots more goodies in this package. There is a huge art gallery with box arts and game manuals, often in both the US and Japanese version. There are excerpts from strategy guides, comic book cover art, and a selection of stills from all the different cartoons and animated shows. You can even look at a bunch of promotional material and magazine adverts. But I guess it's a copyright issue, but all the non-Konami games have been blacked out, so it looks a bit weird, but it's still a nice thing to have. You can also listen to all the music from all the games featured in this package. The presentation of this game is on point. It opens up with an animated intro sequence and the classic Turtles theme song, though there was an issue with one micro stutter every time at the same time during the intro animation. This might be just on the Switch versions, I'm not really sure about that. All the nostalgic goodies are found in the Turtles living room, like game boxes on the table by the TV and comic books on the sofa. It's still just a menu, but it looks quite nice. And when you open the game selection, it is all presented in this massive comic book, with panels from the actual comics, I guess, with the game screen as its own panel in the middle, where you see a short preview of the game. And well, that's what we are all here for, right? So let's look at the games. And we start off with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game. This game for up to 4 players is, like most of the games in this collection, a brawler or beat 'em up or however you want to call it. You mostly walk from left to right, you can step a bit into the background or the foreground, and you have to beat the living shit out of all kinds of ninjas or robots or mutants. You can select one of the 4 titular turtles that differ a bit in attack reach and attack speed, but mostly play the same. You have one jump and one attack button. You can do a basic combo on the ground, you can do a jump attack, and you can perform a special attack by pressing the jump and attack button at the same time. Though this special attack takes up a bit of your health. And that's it for the core gameplay. You now run around, beat up ninjas, and hopefully don't get beaten up yourself too much. Fights consist mostly of learning how your enemies behave and position yourself accordingly, and of course strike back. The gameplay itself gets monotonous quite fast, but the colorful graphics and of course the awesome music can alleviate that a bit. Well, and of course playing with friends. This game was made to be played in 4-player co-op. Well, I haven't played any of the games in co-op so far, so I won't be commenting on that. But I of course keep this in mind as I criticize the games. I mean, with couch co-op, local play and online play, it shouldn't be too hard to get some friends into the action and play these games in co-op. Especially since you don't have to put in actual quarters to keep playing, but can restock your lives with the press of a button. The game was, and still is, fun for what it was, or is, but the real kicker is the next game. Turtles in Time for the arcade. Another 4-player co-op beat 'em up that refined everything from its predecessor. You still fight your way from left to right through hordes of enemies, but your movements are more slick and the turtles feel a bit more different than in the first game. And this game was bonkers. You start off, as in any turtle story, in New York fighting off the Foot Clan, but before you know it, Shredder sends you back in time into the prehistoric age, or the age of sailing, or a western level, where you not only have to fight the Foot Clan ninjas, but also all kinds of other time-appropriate bad guys. From how the core gameplay works, this game doesn't differ too much from its predecessor, but I'd say it's a lot more fun to play, though I still advise playing it in co-op. This game even had a port on the Super Nintendo, which is also playable in this collection. Sadly, you can only play it alone or in 2-player co-op, but everything else is still here. Only drawback is the life system with the Super Nintendo version. You can't just put in more quarters, you have to actually get through the game with a limited amount of lives. But this can be alleviated a bit with some special option this game calls enhancements. You can select those for all the games and they differ from game to game. And I really do like what they did here, because this collection is the best of both worlds. You can play the games as authentically as possible, but you can also opt in to have some modern conveniences, some quality of life features. These can be as simple as a God mode or infinite lives, but can also just be some small tweaks to the gaming experience, like turning off sprite flickering or nullifying the slowdown that appeared in older games when too many sprites were on screen. That means, if you don't touch these enhancements, the game should play as it has back in the day. With all the slowdowns and all the flickering and all the bad stuff happening due to technical limitations of the time. So you can experience the game as you have in the past, but you can now also experience it without the drawback. Well, these games are still designed around certain limitations, like controllers of the day, but you don't have to endure the shortcomings of outdated technology. I really like this approach, and I think it should be the standard of handling these retro collections. Give us the games how they actually were, how they behaved back in the day when they first released. But also give us the option to make them run smoother and have them look better, or have them look the best possible way they were able to back in the day. There's also a lot of graphical options like aspect ratio, scan lines, or a border image around the game screen, which is much appreciated. So yeah, let's look at the next game, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters for the Super Nintendo. A good-looking but subpar Street Fighter clone, where you can play as any of the turtles, but also choose from a selection of bad guys. The game controls similar to Street Fighter, with a single plane side-scrolling battle arena where you can move left and right, duck and jump, and have 2 different punches as well as 2 different kicks. Any given character only has a piss-poor amount of special attacks, where fights can quickly devolve into simple button mashing. Fights against the CPU aren't very fun because your opponent blocks pretty much all of your attacks and always instantly knows when to dodge, when to duck, when to block, and when they are in reach for whatever attack they want to perform. I'm not very good at fighting games, but I didn't suck that much in Street Fighter 2, so there might be some balancing issues when it comes to the AI. There's a story mode, a tournament mode and an arcade mode, but aside from some cutscenes in the story mode, every mode has you fight random opponents in a string of battles. The Sega Genesis or Mega Drive version is completely different, but doesn't fare much better. The story's a bit different, the stages are different, you even have a different selection of fighters. The turtles are still there, but the rogues gallery has been swapped out for returning as well as new allies of the turtles. This is once again a bare bones fighter with a tiny move list, though all the characters have different attacks from their counterparts in the Super Nintendo version. So maybe if those two games had been combined into one, we would have gotten at least one slightly competent fighting game. But I'm not done. There's yet another version of this game in this compilation. I'm speaking of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters for the NES. The undisputedly worst version of this game. All the turtles look the same in this version, well, save for the differently colored bandanas, and they all fight the same, when they're not using their special moves, that is. They just throw punches and kick. And now you only have two attack buttons. One punch button and one kick button. And it handles, well, pulling off special moves works sometimes. I don't know if it's a me problem, but it didn't feel good to perform special moves. I guess it is quite competent for a fighting game on the NES, but yeah, it's the weakest in a series of rather disappointing fighting games. Next up is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Hyperstone Heist for the Sega Genesis. It kinda looks like a port of the original arcade game, just with a few different levels. Kinda like that. It's gameplay wise not the best the franchise has to offer, it's kinda back to basics with this one. And same as with all the Super Nintendo ports, you can only play this with a maximum of 2 players. So yeah, not much more to tell about this. So after we have seen some really fun, good looking multiplayer brawlers, let's look at the other games. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES. Instead of a beat 'em up, we got an action platformer on this one. We still have access to all turtles and can even use them strategically. Whenever one turtle is low on health, we can swap them out for another one. And we should do so, because if one turtle's health drops to 0 at any point, he's captured by the Foot Clan and out of the game. Once again, all the turtles control the same, but differ in their reach and attack speed. We now have to traverse a top-down overworld map by dropping in and out of smaller levels, filled to the brim with all kinds of enemies and smaller bosses, with a big bad at the end. While you have to play carefully, this game isn't too hard or punishing. That is until you get to the second mission, the fucking dam, where you have to tap the button to swim through electrified barricades and seaweed. You can either die instantly or have your health drained away in seconds. Yeah, this isn't much fun. I guess you can get quite good at it with practice, but yeah, the second mission already is a wall of frustration that can kill any fun in an instant. Next up is the NES port of the original Turtles arcade game. So it's back to the roots. This is pretty much the same as the arcade game, just everything is a bit worse. The sprite work isn't as detailed, the sound isn't as good, and same goes for the performance. But aside from technical issues, the game plays pretty much the same as the arcade game. You can punch, you can jump kick, but you don't have the special attack anymore. So it's a bit different. Also, it seemed that the first stage was quite a lot longer, but maybe that's because of the less pleasing graphics that lead to more visual repetition. It's a fine game for the NES, it's a simple brawler that once again can only be played with one other player, same as any other arcade port. I guess this game is fine for nostalgia's sake, but since you have the arcade game on this collection, just play that one instead. The third NES game is The Manhattan Project. Another basic 2D brawler that is a bit more refined than its prequel and plays a bit more similar to the arcade games. You still have a punch and a jump, but now you also have a overhead attack to throw enemies behind you, and also the life-draining special attack is back. Everything else is par for the course. You walk from the left to the right and beat up a whole lot of ninjas and other bad guys. The levels seem a bit more complex, but this is to be expected from a sequel. Still, if you had to choose between this and the NES arcade port, I'd advise you to go with this one. So now we went from high-octane arcade fidelity to still some Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis class to the bare bones of NES gameplay. But we can still go lower. Let's hit it with Fall of the Foot Clan for the Nintendo Game Boy. This game is as bare bones as it can get. It's not bad, it's just incredibly simple. You slowly walk to the right, you can jump over obstacles, and you can attack to kill pretty much every enemy save for bosses with a single hit. All the animations are extremely simplistic. I mean, your turtle's upper body doesn't move when you walk. And while there seems to be different weapon reaches with each turtle, there is not really any attack variety. At least not when it comes to the different turtles. You can once again play as any one of them, and whenever you die, this turtle gets captured by the Foot Clan and you have to select a different one. Now the game has a nifty approach to different attacks. As long as you are standing on the ground, you use your weapon to attack. When you're in the air, you kick. And when you're ducking, you throw shurikens. So you even have a ranged attack. And especially with the last attack type, there is some semblance of tactic or thinking in this game. Because aside from that, the game is pretty monotonous. Since the game is so slow and your turtle has so much health, it's really hard to die. Enemies are just walking towards you, and even when they're jumping, they're slow as fuck. So it's easy to hit them before they reach you, even if two of them attack from both sides simultaneously. The game is fine, it works, but it's not what I would call fun. Well, the next game turned it up a notch. Back from the sewers, retained its predecessor's basic gameplay style, but refined all of its mechanics. You can still punch and jump kick, but instead of a ranged attack while ducking, you have now a small slide move. Enemies now move and attack faster, and also have some more sophisticated attacks. As a result, the game got a bit more energetic and a lot harder. This one feels like I'm actually playing a game, even though I suck at it. So let's quickly look at the third game on the NES. Radical Rescue. This game is way more platforming and less action, though there's still enough of it in here. In this game, you have to traverse a huge maze and have to find and rescue your turtle friends. For that, you need to find keys to open doors and, of course, kill a lot of bad guys on the way. Navigation is confusing as hell, but the game has a certain charm. The difficulty felt quite good. You don't have too much health, but you're also never too far away from a slice of pizza that heals up a few points of health. You can also collect whole pizzas that pretty much act as an extra life, as an instant revive when your health hits zero. Enemies aren't too spongy and don't move too erratically, but they can take away a good chunk of your health if you don't approach them carefully. For a Game Boy game, this is pretty alright. As I said, it can get quite confusing, but this does seem fun. I can see myself trying to solve this whole maze. And with that, we have looked at all the games on this collection. It's a pretty good selection. Not every game on here is a winner, but it's a good showcase of all the different types of Turtles games from the Golden Age. And it kinda acts as a time capsule to show us where those awesome games we have today came from. And this collection had me appreciate the latest Turtles release even more. Pretty much every element in Shredder's Revenge is something out of these old games. And they replicated this nostalgic feeling so well while still providing a modern and incredibly fun experience. So yeah, if you're not into old games, if you're not a Turtles fan, then I don't think you'd get much out of this collection. But if you are into retro gaming, or if you have played these games back in the day and want to dabble a bit into your own nostalgia, then I can wholeheartedly recommend this collection to you. And some of these games aged pretty well. They aren't as fancy as modern games, they don't have as many combo attacks or special moves, but they're still quite fun to play, especially with friends. Though I wouldn't recommend the whole collection for just the 2 arcade games and maybe the Super Nintendo port of Turtles in Time. So no, I don't think you should get this for just the arcade games. But again, if you're into retro games, or if you are this huge Turtles fan and want to get into the history of the Turtles games or something like that, then yeah, give this one a shot. This was made with a lot of care and respect for Turtles fan, for retro gaming fans, and well, pretty much any gamer. This is good value. And with that, I wish you the greatest of days. That's it from Rady, and I hope to see you again on the next game.
Pizza time!
I'm going to mangle you green slime balls.